Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to another segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Today we recite a passage from the writings of the fifth Nanak, Guru Arjan. And in this passage, which is towards the end of Rag Asa, because it's coming to a conclusion, he has essentially summed up the writings, compositions of the Bhagats, Kabir, Namdev, Ravidas. And his message to us is that your origins and your worldly means should not be a barrier. Through divine remembrance, even those of humble means like Kabir, like Ravidas, like Namdev, achieved great spiritual wealth, which is the real wealth. So this is Guru Arjan's tribute, if you will, to these Bhagats who were considered of low caste, marginalized people in Indian society. And that is one of the great gifts of the Sikh Gurus, that they offered a platform, the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, for these marginalized people, simply because they were of low caste and of low means. So let's consider this Shabad. Mahalla Panjwa. Gobind, 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 Sang Naam Deo Man Leena, Aath Dham Ko Chiparo, Hoyo Lakhina. So Gobind, Gobind, Gobind. The stress on Gobind suggests a constant remembrance, a constant devotion. So through constant devotion to Gobind, Gobind, the protector of the universe, the indwelling self. So through constant devotion, Guru Arjan tells us, Namdeo Man Leena. Namdev's mind became centered in Gobind consciousness. And we'll talk about Leena and live in a bit. Man Leena achieved a certain state of consciousness. And then, Aad Dham Ko Chiparo Hoyo Lakhina. So Namdeo, that lowly calico printer, whose worldly worth was not even half a shell, became worth millions. Hoyo Lakhina. That's the central message of this Shabad. Then he comes to Kabir Ji. He says, Bunana tanana tyag ke preet charan kabira, Neechkula jo lahara, bhayo gunigam kahira. Now, we have to be careful with the line Bunana tanana tyag ke, because if you translate this literally, it would read leaving, weaving and stretching behind, or forsaking, and became exalted and profound. Now, the line Bonana Tanana Tyagake Parit Charan Kabira could easily lead us to believe that Gurmat here is advocating renunciation of one's worldly professions, but that is not so. We must always keep in mind what the basic premise of Gurbani is. And we know that Gurbani does not advocate renunciation. So what could this line mean? And as we know, Gurbani speaks in metaphors. So weaving and stretching here symbolizes routine, mundane tasks of life, So the renunciation here means that you have to shift your mind from a purely materialistic existence to one centered on spiritual love. It's simply a matter of prioritizing and an emphasis on being inner-centered while you're doing your worldly affairs, is to have that pivot of wisdom. So it's not about renouncing, but about transcending through deep inner spiritual transformation. So you're still doing the same thing. You simply have brought them together. It's also integration, integrating, making your material tasks spiritual. That's the exercise here with Kabirji. And then Ravidas, Guru Arjan says, Ravidas dhovanta tor nit. Every day, Ravidas dhovanta carried, dragged the load of dead bodies of animals because he was a cobbler. Dinatyagi maya, but he renounced worldly attachments. In other words, he did his worldly tasks with a sense of detachment. Pargat hoya sad sang har darsan paya. Pargat hoa, he made manifest within himself that Gobind consciousness, Hari Darshan, that's another term for it. And now another example, that of Sen the barber. Sen nai bhutkariya, the barber Sen, who was a bhutkariya, meaning he did petty jobs for people without receiving any remuneration for it. He was just the guy that people went to, apart from being a barber, but he ran chores, carried messages from one household to another, created marital alliances, did little petty things for people. Lowly, that's the idea. Sananai Bhutkarya. But what happened to him? Oho Karkar Sunya. His fame spread and he was heard in every home. Why did that happen? Hirde Vasya Parabram. Because Parabram, Gobind, Hari, came to reside in his mind, meaning his consciousness changed. He was now centered in universal consciousness. He was no longer dictated by his own petty ego. And Bhakta Mahi Ganya, he is now counted amongst those who are called Bhagats in Gurbani. This is a select band of people. They are the elect, they are the Panch. And now we were considering Tannaji in the previous Shabad. Guru Arjan concludes with Bhagat Tanna. Ihe bid sunke jataro. Ihe bid sunke, hearing this miraculous transformation, jataro ut pagati lagga. Jataro, a farmer, essentially, one who is attached to the land. Now, of course, we refer to Jats as some sort of a tribe, which they were originally, but the point here is the farmer. Eh bid sunke jataro ut pagati lagga. He began to follow the instructions of these Bhagats. He began to follow the way of Gurmat. And Mile pratak gosaiya tanna vadpagga. Tanna became blessed. Vadpagga. His life was fulfilled because he manifested the self within. Mile pratak. Pratak is to make something manifest. Perfection, if you will. Gosaiya, even though we know there's no such thing as perfection within the body, but that's the idea. This manifestation of the best possibilities within you. That's what happened to Tanna. So in all of this, we began with Namdev ji, Man Lina. Lina comes from live. And that is what we are striving towards. Live means an uninterrupted stream. And its original meaning is an uninterrupted stream of oil as it is poured from one end to the other. In this case, the uninterrupted stream is one of consciousness, which means mindfulness. So in Gurmat, live is an opposing tendency to tat, opposing but complementary, that is available to us. And both of these tendencies, live and tat, are designed by divine will. Live is rooted in loving devotion, a state of uninterrupted centeredness. Tat, on the other hand, is what we call the rat race, or the incessant toxic drive to achieve and accomplish worldly goals. Now, you might think that they're being presented to us to make a choice between one or the other. But here, the contrasting orientations do not present a choice to us. And the reason for that is both emerge from hukam. So if you reject one in favor of the other, you're actually not aligning with hukam. You have to align with both of these tendencies, one outward going, the other inner centered. You have to embrace both. What that means is you have to practice a dynamic balance. So you are externally driven, you're engaged in your worldly profession, worldly goals, but you are inner-centered. You're focused on the vision. You are of the world, but not in it. That is what it means to be man lina. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.